Thank you, Cheryl, for that introduction, and thank you, BIM, for inviting us to be here today. This is a little bit new for us as trade contractors. We don't get out to these kind of events so much outside of the construction industry, so give us a chance to get up to speed on this stuff. Cheryl's introduced our team, so I won't go over that again. We're going to talk today about how we came to decide to get into BIM, pursue BIM as a corporate strategy, how we implemented it, how some of the real world issues have come to light as we've moved down this pathway. Then we'll talk about lessons learned, and then we'll have a question and answer session. But before I get into that, I'll step back a little bit and tell you a little bit about Division15 Mechanical. We came out of another company that we were a division of back in 1995. We started as a department within a company called Mechanical, and they thought that was a good idea to expand into new construction from their retrofit work. And so I was managing that department for them. In 1998, Dale Miller joined the company, and Dale and I managed their operations. Look at those two young dudes there, eh? So we were merrily going along, and in 2004, the company we were working with, their succession plan started to come into play, and Dale and I bought out the department that we were managing and took it off as its own company and formed Division15. So we're 8 years down the road now, and it's been a good partnership. Dale brings the field expertise, and I'm the paper pusher. So when we left Mechanical, we took a core team with us. We had the basics. We took over the contracts that were in place at the time. We finished them for Mechanical and then started securing our own work. So we had a good core group of office and field staff that came with us. So we really hit the ground running. And we were fortunate that about 6 months after we started operations, good old Gordy Campbell announced the Olympics. So that was good timing for us, shall we say. We went on to grow the business. Some of the early larger projects we did were, this was the Pivotal building downtown. It's since been renamed something else, I'm not sure what, but it's this is a picture of, as you come off the Cambie Street Bridge. It's on Beatty, just next to the Terry Fox Plaza. So that was a large office complex that we completed. In 2007, we built the BCIT Aerospace Technology Campus, which a lot of you would probably recognize if you drive south from the airport. It's just before you cross over into Richmond on the island. This was probably our largest project to date. It was 330,000 square feet facility. Geraldine, who's here, was one of the architects on the project, so you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But it was a fair-sized campus project. It encompassed a 45,000 square foot hangar as well, and it was a technical training facility for aeronautical trades. So once we had finished those projects, we felt we were really getting our feet under us and getting going. And so how did we get into BIM, though, I guess is where this is going. There were three things that sort of happened that led us to go down this path. In 2009, we were invited to bid a large international airport terminal in Nassau in the Bahamas. The Vancouver Airport Authority had contracted to manage this for the Bahamian government. Ledcor were the construction managers, and they're one of our better clients. So we thought this was a great idea, to go to the Bahamas and bid some work. Seemed like a great opportunity. So we did that. We put our bid together, and it was in the order of $20 million. But we weren't successful after all that work. And we continued to follow up with the project managers, how the project went, and why we weren't successful. And one of the things we learned was that the successful contractor used extensive prefabrication. They were a Florida contractor and pre-designed and prefabricated extensively and then shipped to the site. This gave them the productivity enhancement of shop fabrication and avoided the low productivity factors of job site fabrication, especially in a remote area like the Bahamas, where there's not a large construction infrastructure in place there. So that sort of turned on one light bulb in our heads, that prefabrication was a good idea. The next thing that happened was I went to a seminar in the spring of 2010 that the Mechanical Contractors Association of British Columbia put on. And they had two trade contractors from the US come up to speak to us. And these gentlemen were well into BIM. They were probably 5 years down the road in their BIM experiences, and were very big on it, and were telling us how their productivity enhancements had really started to prove themselves. They referred to an article out of The Economist that really struck home with me, that in our construction industry, the study that the Economist had done displayed that there was over $200 billion in mistakes, delays, inefficiencies, and $650 billion of construction in America. So almost a third of the cost that goes into construction is really inefficiencies. So productivity in construction hadn't really improved for over probably 50 years, if not more. And we generate huge amounts of documents. This study indicated over 150,000 separate documents on a typical $100 million construction project. That's a huge amount of paperwork, and I think if any of you take the time to think about it in your own organization, you probably come to the conclusion that, as I have, that 150,000 is probably light. We generate a lot of documents between all the firms that are involved in a typical construction project. And we spend a lot of money moving those documents around. I think since this article was written, we don't courier them around as much. It's much more electronic, but the cost has shifted from couriers to printers and plotters and paper. So that struck home with us, that productivity improvement was a big factor with BIM. The other thing we started to see in 2009, 2010 were projects coming out that started to either require BIM capabilities or ask what your BIM capabilities were. The UBC Pharmacy building was one of them. Our friends from Keith Plumbing that are here are going to talk to you a little more about that project today. But that was one of the ones that where we first noticed that. So coming out of those factors, we decided that BIM was something that we needed to get involved in sooner rather than later. So we decided to get on the wagon and start going down that path. So once we had decided that, we started to put together, how is this going to look in our capability? What do we need to do? So we decided we needed to develop an in-house capability in BIM. We didn't want to subcontract this out to someone. We wanted to take control of it ourselves. We wanted to pair up that internal capability with our field staff so that we're leveraging the knowledge base that our field foremen have, the real world ability to understand how construction goes up in the field. So we wanted to pair those two together, the technologist and the field foreman, to come up with a team approach. And out of that, we started to evaluate some of our foremen as to who would be the best candidate. We put together a list of skill sets that we felt that they would need to take on this role. We looked at our foremen and selected who we thought would be the top 3 candidates and then rank them internally. We had 2 very close candidates, and the one that the availability category sort of propelled him to the top, and that we could pull him from the field without jeopardizing a project and get him involved in the office a little more, which foremen love to do. They love to come in the office and spend time at a desk. Anyway, the gentleman we picked was very good, and that worked out very well. So the third vision we had coming out of this was to use the modeling as a pre-construction tool as a clash detection tool to improve our field performance. So we're not reworking work. We put it in right the first time and avoid all those battles on site of who gets there first, who gets their pipe in the air first, or their duct in the air first, and who goes around them. So this was our very early rudimentary vision of what we thought we would do. Since then, our vision of BIM has expanded greatly now that we've gone down this road a little bit, and I'll come back to that towards the end of the presentation. So there we are. We got all this wonderful vision. We're, gee, this is great. Now, who's going to do all this work? So we began recruiting for someone to focus on that, which is when we hired Laheen to come on board and look after our BIM modeling. Laheen graduated from the University of Victoria and had experience in Revit and BIM. So we felt was a strong candidate. She's been with us a little over a year now. At the same time as we were looking for Laheen, we recruited one of our project coordinators to do some internal analysis of what we would need to get going as far as software, hardware, and early stage research. Mark's another UVic grad. Apologies to Professor Snodfrench. We are hiring UBC grads now, and we have some on staff, don't worry. So Mark did our early research on that. Once Laheen had joined the team, we then expanded that into a set of goals and deliverables, what we wanted to achieve, more than just the broad strokes of the vision. So these are the goals that we set up: to develop fully coordinated mechanical room drawings with internal clash detection. Mechanical rooms for us are the heart and soul of the project, where all the piping and ductwork comes together. As most of you probably well know, they're a very busy and complex area of the building. Clash detection for key areas of the building where we're distributing systems, corridors, corridor ceilings, shafts, risers, that kind of thing. We wanted to automate our hangar layout using robotic stations that can draw from the model the routing and use that in our layout of the hangars, sleeves, openings in the slab, etc. We wanted to be able to incorporate significant changes to the scope of work into the model so that we weren't reworking installed work. Excuse me. We wanted to be able to expedite as-built drawings, that these would flow out of the model as the either changes in the field occurred or changes from the owner came out, that these would be captured in the model so that when we got to the end of the project, it would be a fairly quick process to generate as-built documents. We wanted to be able to work with energy modeling through the model on projects where energy modeling is being used. And we wanted to integrate into a full BIM project where we're part of an overall team that's working in BIM rather than just working in a lonely BIM environment by ourselves or with limited number of other trades. And lastly, we wanted to get into prefabrication of piping systems, which came out of our experience with the Nassau Airport. So those were the things that we were trying to set up to achieve. We've started to get down that road. We set up a timeline at the same time of when this would occur. We started a year ago, a little over a year ago now, with basic training for Laheen and our field foreman. That then we rolled into projects that we thought would be achievable to start to use BIM at an early stage in a lonely BIM environment where we're just working on our own without the involvement of all the other trades on a project. These projects that we thought didn't exactly work out, the one changed into a different one that Dinos is going to speak about. And the Cooke Place project got delayed, but it is now underway and we are proceeding in a BIM format there. So we wanted to achieve these internal goals of working internally on our BIM models for the mechanical rooms, the layout, the shafts, those kind of things within 12 months. And we're probably 85% there now that we are a year down the road. And then we wanted to, within another year, be working on a full BIM project where the entire team is working in a BIM environment. We don't have that on the horizon yet. We've had a number of projects that we've been pursuing that we weren't successful on, so we're still looking for that project. The last thing we did at this early stage was set up our success criteria. What constitutes success? We're going to go through all these stages and steps and spend all this money. What are we going to gain from it? So the first thing was to improve our labor productivity. That was one of the big issues we were looking to achieve. And we were going to measure that by comparing it to our labor budget versus the direct costs we're spending on BIM. So if we reduce our labor budget by what we spend on BIM, we've at least broken even. Hopefully we're going to improve our labor productivity beyond that. The next success criteria was obtaining opportunities to bid project based on BIM capability. We're looking for, and still looking for, the owners to be pushing the need for BIM. From our limited knowledge of the US market, we see that as a much stronger factor down there, that the US owners seem to recognize that BIM is a very strong tool from the owner's perspective, from facilities management, and that they are driving the ship a little more down there, I think, than Canadian owners are. And tighter purchasing control was something we wanted to gain through the model, and prefabrication, that we wouldn't be ordering extra material because we didn't know exactly which way the routing was going to go. So you always want to have enough material on site to be able to keep moving forward. There's nothing worse for a contractor than having labor sitting idle waiting for material. That's the kiss of death. And we wanted to eliminate overtime as a method of staying on schedule. Oftentimes when there are clashes, problems, rework required, that obviously bites into your schedule. So we wanted to use the model to improve our installations so that we're not using that method to stay on schedule. And we wanted to grow a list of BIM-capable subtrades. Sheet metal contractors, sprinkler contractors, these are subtrades that we hire on our projects, and they are very strong candidates for BIM because most of them have some type of internal design capability already, whether they're fabricating sheet metal or sprinkler piping. They are doing engineered documents. So to move them into a BIM environment would seem to be a pretty natural progression. But again, we're finding it's a bit of an uphill battle to push them in that direction. But I think they're beginning to see the benefits and that there are going to be projects looking for that capability. So those were the success criteria that we laid out for ourselves that would give us an indication of when we're achieving our goals. So that was sort of the early part of our BIM life. This started, as say, about 2 years ago, a year sort of thinking it through, and now a year down the road. So about a year ago, we obtained a project that we did implement as our first BIM project. And I'm going to let Dinos and Laheen come up now and tell you about that experience.